The Apostle Peter, as we talked about this morning in 1 Peter 3:20, believed in Noah. It says in 1 Peter 3:20, God says those who were formerly disobedient when the divine long-suffering waited in the days of Noah while the ark was being prepared, in which a few, that is 8 souls, were saved. 2 Peter 2:5, God did not spare the ancient world, but he saved Noah. 2 Peter 3:6, the world that then existed was flooded. Archaeologists have found that every ancient civilization has a flood tradition with details that parallel those that Noah and the Scriptures record. In fact, at a future time I'm going to read to you exactly, they've computerized all the legends of the world, and they've sorted them. And what you find out is, as I mentioned this morning, that a high 90th percentile believes that 8 people were in the boat. And then you get just down to the 90th percentile, and there are animals in the boat. And you get just under the 90th percentile, and 88% of all the legends in the world say that the water destroyed all the other people on the earth. I mean, that's just the legends of the Mayans and the Incas and the people that live in the islands of the Pacific and people that live far in the center of Africa. All of them have flood traditions and legends. And as archaeologists look at these, and they see the parallel to the Genesis account, they find that they've involved their fanciful gods and goddesses in, like the Babylonians say that the people of Nebuchadnezzar, their legends were that the ark was a gigantic cube that was square shaped. Well, we know that isn't true because it would have been tumbling, going like this. God told Noah how to make the boat, but they had the story right that there was a flood. Secondly, the flood historically was a fact and it's literal, but the purpose of the flood is back in our text, and I want to show you in verse 5 of Genesis 6. And if you wonder how God could kill everybody on the planet, Genesis 6:5 says this, verse 5 of chapter 6. The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. God looked at the planet and spread out the people and looked at their hearts. And he said, all I can see is that every single person on this planet continually is sinning in their hearts. And he found one man that was resisting the world. And that's verse 8. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Why? Look at verse 9. Because Noah was a just man, perfect in his generation, and he walked with God. Noah was one who was a part of that line of the godly that were walking with God. And God says, I will graciously pour out my mercy on him. Man had become corrupt. The earth was filled with violence. God had to destroy mankind. There must always be judgment and death before there can be a new beginning. That's what the Bible says. Well, thirdly, if the fact of the flood is proved by the Scriptures, the purpose of the flood is to meet the just requirements of a holy God in his wrath against sin. What was the method? Well, we've talked about this many times, that the ark definitely could hold all species. If you take the most conservative cubit, which a cubit is from the fingertips to the elbow, if you take the most conservative size, you would have found out and measured that the ark was between 450 and 600 feet long and about 75 to 100 and some feet wide and about 45 feet high. If you add all this up, that would indicate that there was a minimum of 1.5 million square feet. Now, let's convert that to railroad cars. The ark would hold 569 railroad stock cars. Okay, you know that you put animals in, take them to market. Of which only 208 of the 500, almost 600 cars could hold all 21,000 land animals that we have right now. You only need a third of the cars to hold the land animals. You say, well, what about all the sea animals and everything else? Well, I looked at the charts this week, and if you look at all the 1.072 million species of animals on the planet, you know, an awful lot of them are things like sponges and worms and fish and things like that. If you take all the land animals and put them in a blender and got the average of all of them, the average land animal is the size of a sheep. Did you know that? The average one. There are 21,000 animals, land animals, that would need to be in the ark, and the average size is a sheep. That means that half of them are greater than that size and half of them are smaller. So they would all fit in only 208 railroad cars. So therefore, there's no problem with this boat holding all the animals. We don't know how many species there were in that day. I'm sure there were more than there are now. If we're having stuff die off before our very eyes, they've been dying off for a long time. It says in verse 20 of Genesis 6, notice this. It says, of the birds after their kind, of the animals after their kind, I'm reading Genesis 6:20, of the creeping things after their kind, two of every kind, will come to you to keep alive. Now see, this wasn't just Noah out there going, it wasn't like that. I just see him with a chain, on this gigantic, whatever. Come on. No, God, it says there, He caused them, verse 20. You might want to underline that. They will come to you. God was involved. God created them. He had Adam name them, and then God put into them a desire to come to the ark.